The Real Story of Nero, a dark essay on misconceptions, rise, reign, and end. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, the fifth Roman emperor, is one of history's most infamous figures. His name conjures images of tyranny, extravagance, and madness. He is often remembered as the emperor who fiddled while Rome burned, the persecutor of Christians, and the murderer of his own mother. Yet, the real story of Nero is far more complex than the caricature that has been passed down through history. Misconceptions about him have clouded our understanding of his rise, reign, and ultimate downfall. This essay seeks to unravel the layers of Nero's life, examining how these misconceptions have shaped his legacy and exploring the darker truths of his rule. Now, before we move on with the story, please help a small channel grow. Like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Okay, back to the story. The rise of Nero, a puppet emperor. Nero's ascent to power was not the result of his own ambition but rather the machinations of those around him. Born in 37 AD to Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus and Agrippina the Younger, Nero was thrust into the heart of Roman politics by his mother, a woman of ruthless ambition. Agrippina married her uncle, Emperor Claudius, and convinced him to adopt Nero, positioning him as heir over Claudius's own son, Britannicus. When Claudius died in 54 AD, rumored to have been poisoned by Agrippina, Nero, at just 16 years old, became emperor. The early years of Nero's reign were marked by the influence of his mother, his tutor Seneca, and the praetorian prefect Barrett. These advisors guided the young emperor, and his rule was initially seen as a time of relative stability and prosperity. Nero's early policies were praised for their moderation, and he even attempted to reduce corruption and improve the lives of the lower classes. However, the seeds of his later infamy were already being sown. Agrippina's overbearing presence and Seneca's philosophical idealism could not contain Nero's growing desire for absolute power and his penchant for excess. The reign of Nero, misconceptions and dark realities. The most enduring misconception about Nero is that he was a deranged tyrant from the outset. In reality, his reign was a gradual descent into despotism, fueled by paranoia, insecurity, and a thirst for artistic and personal freedom that clashed with the rigid expectations of Roman emperorship. One of the most infamous episodes of Nero's reign was the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. The fire devastated the city, and Nero was accused of starting it to clear land for his lavish palace, the Domus Aurea, Golden House. The image of Nero fiddling while Rome burned has become a symbol of his callousness, but this story is almost certainly a myth. The fiddle did not exist in ancient Rome, and contemporary accounts suggest that Nero was not even in Rome when the fire started. In fact, he organized relief efforts and opened his palaces to shelter the homeless. However, his decision to build the Domus Aurea on the ruins of the fire fueled public resentment, and his persecution of Christians as scapegoats for the fire further tarnished his reputation. Nero's artistic ambitions also contributed to his downfall. Unlike previous emperors, who focused on military conquest and governance, Nero saw himself as a performer and artist. He competed in poetry, music, and chariot racing, activities that were considered beneath the dignity of an emperor. His public performances alienated the Roman elite, who viewed them as a disgrace. Yet, Nero's passion for the arts was not merely a sign of madness, it reflected his desire to connect with the people and break free from the constraints of traditional Roman leadership. The darker side of Nero's reign was his increasing paranoia and brutality. He ordered the murder of his mother, Agrippina, after she became a political threat. He also executed his first wife, Octavia, and his second wife, Poppaea Sabina, allegedly in a fit of rage. These acts of violence, along with his growing reliance on informers and executions, alienated the Senate and eroded his support among the Roman elite. The end of Nero, a tragic downfall. Nero's downfall was as dramatic as his reign. In 68 AD, a series of revolts broke out across the empire, fueled by discontent with his rule. The governor of Gaul, Gaius Julius Vindex, led a rebellion, followed by the governor of Spain, Galba. As support for Nero crumbled, even the Praetorian Guard abandoned him. Declared a public enemy by the Senate, Nero fled Rome and committed suicide on June 9, 68 AD, reportedly lamenting, "What an artist dies in me." Nero's death marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and plunged Rome into a year of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. His legacy was immediately vilified by his successors, who sought to legitimize their own rule by contrasting it with Nero's excesses. The Senate condemned his memory, and his name was erased from monuments, a practice known as damnatio memoriae. Misconceptions and legacy. Why Nero matters. The misconceptions about Nero have persisted for centuries, shaped by the biases of ancient historians like Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio, who wrote under emperors hostile to Nero's memory. These accounts portray him as a monster, but they often overlook the complexities of his reign. Nero was not merely a mad tyrant, he was a product of his time, a man caught between the expectations of Roman emperorship and his own desires for artistic and personal freedom. Nero's reign also highlights the fragility of power in ancient Rome. His rise and fall demonstrate how quickly public opinion could turn against an emperor, and how the Roman elite's obsession with tradition and dignity could clash with the aspirations of a ruler who sought to break the mold. In the end, Nero's story is a dark and tragic one, a cautionary tale about the dangers of absolute power and the weight of legacy. His life reminds us that history is often written by the victors, and that the truth about even the most infamous figures is rarely as simple as it seems. Nero may have been a flawed and often brutal ruler, but he was also a man shaped by the pressures and contradictions of his time, a man whose story continues to fascinate and horrify us, nearly 2 millennia after his death. Thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe.